The council should be respectful of others in their choice of words and actions. I'll call the meeting of the Terrebonne Parish Council Wednesday, February 9th to order, and I'll ask Mr. Gerald Michel for an invocation followed up by his leading the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many gifts that we have. We ask you to watch over us, watch over Terrebonne Parish, especially those people who are suffering because of Hurricane Ida, because of the COVID. We ask you to bless us all in a special way and help us to ensure that our every decision, our every thought, our every action be a tribute to your love for us. We ask this in all things through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Hampton, roll call.
Mr. Darren Guidry.
Here.
Mr. Babin. Here. Mr. Dirk Guidry. Here. Mr. Trosclair. Here. Mr. Navy. Here. Mr. Harding. Here. Mr. Michel. Here. Mr. Amade. Here. Mrs. Domain. Here. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum present.
Thank you very much. Approve the minutes of the regular council session held on January 12th, 2022. Moved by Mr. Carl Harding.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. John Amade. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Distribute minutes of the regular council session held on January 26, 2022, which we've done. Approve accounts payable bill list for January 31st, 2022 and February 7th, 2022. Moved by Councilwoman Jessica Domain, seconded by Councilman Carl Harding. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. General business. Proclamation declaring the year 2022 as Terrebonne Bicentennial Celebration Year in Terrebonne Parish. The council recognizes Ms. Domain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is my honor to read this proclamation tonight. The City of Houma, Louisiana, Parish of Terrebonne, a proclamation. Whereas on April 22nd, 1822, the first meeting of the Terrebonne Parish Police Jury was convened, marking the beginning of this parish as a governing body in the state of Louisiana. And whereas during the subsequent 200 years, the land known as the Good Earth was transformed from the simple residences of a few 100,000 farmers, fishermen, and trappers into a modern community with over 100,000 permanent residents. And whereas, unlike the early settlers who relied on the bounty of the land and waters of this parish, the present citizens of Terrebonne Parish have developed a wide variety of occupations ranging from oil and gas industry to a tremendous medical community to prosperous financial institutions and insurance companies to huge retail establishments and more. And whereas, while Terrebonne Parish is known for many things such as great food, superior fishing and hunting opportunities, and celebrations such as Mardi Gras and festivals, locals know that the best aspects of Terrebonne Parish is the people who populate our community, their love for the land, and their respect for one another. And whereas the Terrebonne Bicentennial Celebration Committee began work on a celebration of Terrebonne's 200th anniversary over 2 years ago, and despite a pandemic not seen in hundreds of years and a hurricane of a magnitude unknown to this parish for many years, the community has developed a series of programs and activities which are designed to educate the public of interesting facts regarding our history in order to prepare our citizens for the next 200 years. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the entire Terrebonne Parish Council on behalf of Parish President Gordon E. Dove and the entire Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government that the year 2022 be declared Terrebonne Bicentennial Celebration Year in Terrebonne Parish, and that all citizens of this community in the entire state of Louisiana join in the celebration of over 200 years of prosperity and growth in this parish, presented this 9th day of February 2022, and is signed by Mr. Darren Guidry, our council chairman, Mr. Gordon E. Dove, our parish president, and the entire parish council. And I believe we do have Mr. Paul Labatt here today to receive this.
Can I have a couple of minutes?
Sure, go ahead and state your name and address, Mr. Labat.
Paul Labat, 825 Arrett Street, Houma. I'm the chairman of the Bicentennial Committee, and I have to say it's nice being on this side of the podium for a change. As Proclamation said, we started work on this 2 years ago. We had all kind of programs planned. We planned to meet with different people, have all kind of organizations celebrate with us. Ida kind of changed everything for us. But we did regroup it earlier last year, toward the end of last year, and we've managed to start. This particular presentation we planned on having in November. But I think everybody's got a copy of the calendar of events we have lined up. We have a wide variety of programs open to the public. Everything's free to the public. We can have presentations on different things. We've had local community leaders chair different committees, and we have different topics. They can all be held at the parish library. It's about an hour-and-a-half presentation. People are welcome to come. It's, like I said, free to the public. You'll learn a lot about history. And we felt it was better to postpone things or kind of hold them later. We realized history is important, but the future of Terrebonne Parish is more important. So we want to do this, and hopefully y'all can get involved in it and come to some of our events. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labat.
Thanks.
Moving on, proclamation declaring the month of February 2022 as Black History and Cultural Awareness Month in Houma and Terrebonne. The chair recognizes Mr. Navy.
Thank you. Give me a great pleasure and honor to actually read this proclamation acknowledging Black History and Cultural Awareness Month. Whereas the month of February is recognized nationally as Black History Month to recognize and celebrate the achievement of and advancements by African Americans whose impact or experience we appreciate 365 days a year. And whereas each year, Black History Month is intended to educate and acknowledge the contribution of African American inventors, educators, physicians, politicians, musicians, actors, producers, etc., who helped form the history of America. And whereas during this month, the citizens of Terrebonne Parish are encouraged to learn about rich legacy that influenced many of us today, innovations and innovators and innovators, and whereas in order to teach further generations, citizens are also encouraged to share with other information from their own historical past about the contribution of African Americans. Now therefore be resolved by the Terrebonne Parish Council on behalf of the Parish President Gordy Dub and the entire Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government that the month of February 2022 be hereby declared Black History and Cultural Awareness Month in Houma, Terrebonne. Signed by Chairman Darren Guidry, Parish President Gordy Dub, and the rest of the council. I would like to acknowledge also the fact that every year that I get the opportunity to read this proclamation, that in the late 1800s, Terrebonne Parish Houma area had their first mayor, Joseph Dupar. And I think that was so historic. In fact, his picture's back there on that wall back there, if you all look back there. So that's significant. I tell you about the interchange of this government and the things that does happen and how change is still happening today. So I really appreciate the fact that they gave me the honor to read this proclamation and give the people of Terrebonne Parish the opportunity to really experience the culture of everybody, not just one culture. Thank you.
Do we have anybody here to accept the proclamation?
No, I think Margie Scove is not here, but me and Mr. Carl Hardin accepting it on behalf.
Yes. Mr. Harding, before we move on, would you like to be recognized?
Sure. Yes, we have, like Mr. Navy had said, that we have come a long way. We have even farther to go. I would like to say on the behalf of Ms. Margie Scobie, every other African American that actually that celebrates, but then there are some occasions and perhaps we'll find later on in our lives that, you know what I mean, this is not a ship that's traveling on the sea by itself. Changes cannot be made by one particular community. Therefore, we must actually look at this planet and this parish as one planet, and we all have a responsibility to live with one another and be joyful about it. So, again, on behalf of everyone that's involved with the history that we actually have, that we actually accept this on the behalf of Ms. Margie Scobie. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Moving on, item C, commendation for Perla Lewis. Chair recognizes Mr. John Amity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's my pleasure to be able to read this commendation by the City of Houma, Louisiana, Parish of Terrebonne. Whereas Perla Lewis began her service with Terrebonne Parish as an employee of the Terrebonne Parish Customer Service Department, reading meters on November 25th, 1997, and whereas she transferred to Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government's Problem Solver Department as a secretary on June 29th, 1998, and whereas Perla was promoted to Clerk 3 in 1998 when the Terrebonne Water Life Museum first opened, and served the community in this role until her retirement on February 3rd, 2022. And whereas Perla has been an ambassador to Houma in her position at the Water Life Museum since 1998, and whereas Perla has welcomed each visitor to the museum with a cheerful smile and directed them to the next cultural site after visiting with them, and whereas Perla has worked and volunteered with many nonprofits throughout the parish, proving her generosity, selflessness, and noble character, and whereas February 3rd, 2022 marked the last day of her employment and beginning the first day of her well-deserved and hard-earned retirement. And whereas we hope that her retirement will give her much-needed time to enjoy her 3 beautiful grown children, and whereas the parish president, along with whom all of those she has served long and well, wish to extend their heartfelt appreciation to Perla for her dedication to the City of Houma and the Parish of Terrebonne, and for the many sacrifices of personal time and effort she has made throughout the past 25 years. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Terrebonne Parish Council on behalf of Parish President Gordon E. Dove and the entire Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government that the extraordinary service of Perla Lewis of the people of Houma Terrebonne community is hereby publicly acknowledged, and that she has extended the sincerest best wishes for her future, signed by Parish President Gordon E. Dove, Council Chairman Darren W. Guidry Sr., and the entire Terrebonne Parish Council.
Ms. Perla, you can say a few words. Please do.
I would just like to thank you all for the years you allowed me to serve. I really appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perla. And I think calling you the ambassador to Terrebonne Parish is, I think, a very, very good title. And if you get a chance, you need to call my father-in-law, Al Voisin, and console him, because he is really upset that you are leaving. Thank you very much. Moving along, Councilman Steve Trosclair, discussion and possible action relative to streetlights and decorative light poles. The council recognizes Mr. Trosclair.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had this put on the agenda, and I've actually spoken to a little to Mr. Ernie Brown and also to Mary Fay with Energy about the agreement or the system of decorative street lights in some of the subdivisions in the rural areas outside the city limits. Who's responsible for them and how they're maintained and upkept. And there's a disconnect. It seems to be a disconnect between the parish and Energy. A lot of times, an example is at 117 St. Agnes, over a year ago, it started in January last year, I started putting work orders in to replace a light that the fixture was bad. It's a decorative pole in the subdivision. I think Miss Tammy, I've had her check it a couple of times, but I think we've got probably at least four different work orders that we turned in and never got anything done. About 2 months before the storm, I wanted the light, actually the request was to replace the broken fixture with an LED fixture. I think that might be where the disconnect came in at. But either way, it went on for nearly a year that the light wasn't done. And about 2 months before the storm, the light fixture was changed, but it was actually changed back to the regular incandescent type light fixture. It worked for 2 months, and actually the storm came, it's out again. Went through the process. I called Mr. Brown, and he actually had someone came put, I didn't see who it was, came put LED light fixture, but as of today, it's still not lit. So I don't know if it's a power issue, but somewhere we got a disconnect because, speaking to Miss Mary Fay and Mr. Brown, it's my understanding, and Mary Fay, you can stand up and correct me if I get out of line here. It's my understanding that Energy provides the power up to the point where it leaves their system to the pole. And from that point, the parish is responsible for the light fixture, the pole, and the wire up to the pedestal where it gets its power from. So if that's the case, it's okay. I can deal with that, but we have to be more efficient. And this 117 St. Agnes Street, it's a street light in front of my house. So I'm telling you something that's actual facts. I just hope that my constituents don't have to go through the same thing and wait over a year and a half to get a street light put up. And it's not because of lack of trying, because I've turned it. I mean, Ms. Tammy can take. I call her several times to turn in work orders. So if I guess the point of having the people here. I mean, another thing. Since the hurricane, and actually, everything's been flipped upside down since the hurricane. Southgate subdivision, there's at least 7 poles on the ground that's still laying in people's yards, like decorative poles. I know Energy's passed down that subdivision probably 1,000 times, or their contractors. The parish has had parish people pass up and down that subdivision at least 1,000 times. If I had to guess, some of these poles are probably still energized, because if they didn't de-energize them, why would the pole still be laying in the ground? So, I mean, it would make common sense that if somebody will come and cut the power off, they'll pick the pole up off the ground. I would hope that would be the case. So if that's not the case, there's still, today, I think 7 poles that are laid on people's front yards. Now, I do know that one of them, the light was used to be lit, was laid on the ground. Either the light burned out, or the cell went out, or they disconnected the power. I can't tell. I'm not going to check it out. Chase subdivision, there's several poles that are damaged. I don't think there's any on the ground that I could see. Bayou Estate, same thing. Some of them are twisted completely around. The poles are twisted. Now, these are all decorative poles, and, my understanding is the parish responsibility to take care of them. Green Acres, there's probably 40 or 50 poles in that subdivision that are in disarray, disrepair. Lafayette Woods, Crestview Isle, several broken fixtures. St. Agnes, which is the subdivision I live in, actually had one pole that contacted Mr. Brown once again about 3 weeks ago to finally get the power de-energized. Now, that pole has been removed. They de-energized it and removed it because it was laid on the ground, and when it would get dark, the light would come on and light the ground up, which is, in my opinion, and I'm sure it's not only my opinion, it's a very, very bad safety hazard to have energized poles laying on the ground. So I don't know what it's going to take or who we got, how we got to do it, but I would like to see Energy and the parish get together some kind of way and put something out so that we can make one phone call. I've turned stuff and I've turned like the one from my house to Energy several times. And actually it gets back to the parish, and the parish, no, it's not us. It's outside the city. It goes back to, so it's a disconnect. So we need to cut that process to where somebody knows if this subdivision comes in with a call, this is what it's going to be. This is have to take care of it. Energy will put the power up to the pedestal. From the pedestal, the parish takes care of that. If that's the process, that's the process. But we need to do better, communicating between the two companies, the two organizations, and the response needs to be 100 times better. Because it leaves a lot to be desired at this point. While I'm speaking about the street lights, Mardi Gras parades are coming around, and I've ridden down the parade route because I've been riding Mardi Gras for like 26 years. Riding down the parade, that's a lot of really, really dark spots. So if we can get the city, if it's in the city areas, or Energy if it's in energy areas, or Sleek if it's in the Sleek areas, to try to get some lights up before our parade start in 2 weeks along these routes, that would be really beneficial to our law enforcement, the safety of the people coming to the parades and the people riding in the parades. Because there's some areas, one spot in particular I saw is on Main Street at 1785, which is Energy. It's really, really dark, and it's right by Jack's Auto Parts on Main Street. It's a real dark spot, and that's an area that normally has a lot of congested people, congregated that area. So that's just one of the things, on the safety side that I think, would help, especially our law enforcement people, because those guys are stretched thin already trying to crowd control all these people. But Mary, if you'd like to come up and say anything, correct anything I've said, or add to anything I've said, you're welcome to do it. Okay, that's fine.
Thank you, Councilmember. My name is Al Galindo.
Go ahead.
I'm with Entergy's customer service organization. Do you need to provide my address?
If you don't mind, provide your work address will be fine.
Yeah, 4809 Jefferson Highway, Jefferson, Louisiana.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember, thank you for the feedback. As Mary Fay mentioned, I actually worked in the lighting group when I first started working at Entergy about 11 years ago, and I was taking notes on the questions and the comments that you were making, and yes, there definitely needs to be a better connection between Entergy and the city and the areas that are damaged with streetlights to make sure that there's repairs made. I think the comment that you made about a safety issue is definitely a concern, because we don't want poles laying on the ground that are energized, and in many cases we don't know if a child or an animal or an adult would make contact with that pole, what it could do. So part of what I want to do is be able to sit down with the city and with you and our Entergy team to kind of figure out where these issues are. One of the areas that we can help with as it relates to whether Entergy owns the streetlight or if the parish owns the streetlight is to go into our maps that designate, who the ownership of the streetlight is. That will help to designate and facilitate the repairs. You're right, if it's, typically if it's a decorative pole, which is, a steel pole or and it's a decorative lighting fixture, in many cases, the subdivisions have those lights paid for by the parish. We refer to them as customer-owned lights. So we at Entergy provide the electric service to a primary feed point for the initial light, and then from that feed point, all of the rest of the lights are daisy-chained or connected so that the illumination can occur. And in those cases, the parish is responsible for all the maintenance and upkeep of the fixtures past the metering point, or not the metering point, but the delivery point of the energized line. But then there's also services that we provide as company-owned streetlights that we would be responsible for all the maintenance and upkeep. So we can sit down and kind of go through the maps, and that's something that I can do with the parish to kind of facilitate that process. So I appreciate the feedback, but I hope that kind of helps answer some of the questions that you were asking. Regarding the parade route, I know we're going to report in a little bit the work that we've done, but if there are certain what we call spots that are a priority, and I've made notes of them, we can definitely address those, and we'll be prepared to do that as well, because I know that's an important aspect, not only here in Terrebonne, but the whole region for Mardi Gras. So I hope that kind of helps.
And we also have a lot of other lights besides
Oh, yeah.
Mardi Gras,
Yeah,
like
we
parade
know.
route. So, but, this and Mardi Gras is right here. In
Right.
2 weeks we have our first parade. So, I think that would help our law enforcement out big time to try to light that, at least the parade route up
Yes.
before. So I really don't have anything else for you at this point. Mr. Brown, would you like to come up or someone from, and Candace, while he's coming up, on these decorative subdivisions, most of the newer subdivisions have decorative light poles. Okay, I think our standard rate to energy is like $5 and something a month per light. Do we get any discount off of those lights?
No, sir.
So we maintain them for the same $5 a month. That don't sound like a good contract to me.
Okay, Ms. Malden?
So my answer to you is no, sir. But let me backtrack a little bit. I'm not 100% sure on that. So I'll have to look at the contracts and look at the invoices. But I don't believe we have
I
gotten...
haven't heard of it myself.
No,
so.
I mean, I think it's the energy that's going to the lights is what we're paying for. So that's where we got to look
But
into
on
it.
the rural lights, they're paying for maintenance and energy.
Right. So
With that
I need
same
to,
amount of money.
Right. So I need to look at it and verify that before I give you a definitive. No, we don't.
All right, thanks a lot.
Mr. Brown?
And I didn't mean to interrupt you, Myrna. I thought it came to my head. I didn't want to forget it.
Good afternoon, Ernest Brown, 301 Plant Road, Utilities Director. Yes, we have, noticed that we have a lot of street lights out. We have been working with Energy. We sent them the parade route, and some hot spots for them to start working on. We've, as far as the parish, we've upgraded all of the lights downtown from St. Charles, Main Street, Barrow Street to LED during the Christmas parade. We do have some hot spots with the decorative lights on Main Street that we probably have to get light towers to assist during the parade for those. Our guys have been doing surveys in Southern Estates, Sugarwood area with the decorative lights that we know to kind of get a count, and so we can place an order for those
Well,
and get the material.
let's look at some of the subdivisions down the bayous too.
Yes.
Being that the parish is responsible for them, the Chase, Bayou Estates, Green Acres, Presque, Lafayette Woods, St. Agnes. But the main thing is getting these poles off the ground.
Yes.
I mean, Southgate subdivision, there's at least 7 poles still laying in people's yards. And
Typically, the routine process is if it's, energy service area, they're usually notified first. And, if it is an issue, they correspond with the parish via email, and then we, dispatch a work order for that. But, we can, start sending, trucks to those areas to pick up those poles, and get a head start on the repairs.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Brown, and I know we have several other people wishing to be recognized. Mr. Amity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm not sure who's going to be able to answer this, but my colleague was talking about these decorative poles. And what about the regular aluminum poles in subdivisions? Are they handled the same way, where once it leaves that transformer, that source of power, it then becomes the parish's responsibility?
Oh, hold on, Mr. Brown.
As far
Go ahead.
as underground, if it's fed underground by energy, then it's the parish's responsibility. Sleeker does the full turnkey job.
So in my neighborhood, for example, it's an aluminum pole, everything's running underground to that pole. Farintello Estates, the whole back of the neighborhood is not lit. All the poles are standing, but the lights are not working. That's out in the Schriever area. So I'm just wondering who to report that to, because I normally report the lights out to energy, but if it's a problem with power to the pole...
It would be energy.
So that would be energy?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to make clarity on that. And you mentioned Southern Estates, and I know I have the president of the HOA. We've been going back and forth on that when they have the decorative poles. And I was glad to hear you mention that y'all did a survey in there.
Yes.
I have a couple other subdivisions like Wallace Thibodeau Estates that has those little things as well. And then to energy. I don't know if Mr. Galindo wants to come back up to the mic.
I didn't hear the question.
I didn't ask yet. I'm just calling you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. So from what I understand from Mr. Brown, in that neighborhood, power to that pole would be you?
Yeah, the feed.
It's underground.
It's underground. So the way our network operations works those jobs is we're responsible for ensuring that the delivery of electric power to that first location, we make sure that it's energized. And then once that first pole is energized and it goes and the underground services go beyond excuse me, that first pole, then it's the parish's responsibility to maintain the underground service as well as the poles and the lights.
Yeah, all right. Because I just want to make sure I'm reporting to the right people, because it's been a year I've been reporting that subdivision and nothing's been done. The last time energy reps were with us, we were asking about if there was any way to provide additional crews to help with those lights, because we know that they're busy hooking up the temporary housing, and we definitely want to get that done. But we also have a lot of dark spots that just breed crime because of streetlights being out. Was there any discussions on that, or?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's actually part of my presentation, is to give the parish council and the parish president an overview of the entire process of bringing in more contractors, and I can describe that as I make my presentation.
Okay. And well, I'll leave it at that. I thank you and Mary Faye for coming, Ernie for coming and trying to get some of this stuff up. Ernie, I'll probably get with you about the overpass lights, because some of them are out, some of them are purple, and some of them are bright white. So I'll just get with you on that another time.
I will just add, if I can, the rates or the tariffs that we charge for Entergy-owned lights versus customer-owned lights, they're different. And so probably a good thing that we could do when we sit down is make sure that we provide that information so that there's a good understanding of the differences. That way, as you look at the electric bill that you get for streetlights, you'll see the differences there. And we'll be more than happy to do that.
I think everybody would appreciate that. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Glenn, you'd mentioned a presentation. Is that a presentation for the council in regards to lights?
No, sir. I mean, I'm going to present it to you here, but it's not a PowerPoint or anything like that.
But it is for the council?
It's for me to present to you.
Why don't you go ahead and present it?
You want me to go ahead and do it now?
Do it now, because it may answer some of the questions that our council members have, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all. Thank you. Well, we thank you for inviting us to speak with you at the council and the parish president regarding the streetlight restorations and repairs across Terrebonne Parish. As I mentioned, my name is Al Galindo. I'm the Regional Manager for Customer Service for Entergy Louisiana, and the areas of responsibility for my team are essentially the south, southeast, and the western parts of Louisiana. So all of the individuals that are in Mary Fay's position, we have them in those areas. And as you can imagine, the last 2 years have been the most impactful for our team with these storms, starting with Hurricane Laura and Lake Charles, and then everything that happened in 2020 and 2021. For me personally, I've been in this business for over 30 years, and these last 2 years have been the most impactful for me. And I'm at the end of my career, so it's been a great learning experience as well. As you know, Mary Fay is the customer service manager assigned to Terrebonne, and she will be retiring at the end of this month after 34 years of service with Entergy. We really appreciate having Mary Fay working in this role. She does a great job in trying to make sure she communicates with our elected officials, and we wish her well in the next chapter of her life. We've already initiated the search process for Mary Fay's replacement, and in the interim, because she is leaving at the end of the month, we have gotten approval to bring on another former Entergy employee who has been in a similar role to, during the transition, so we won't have a gap in having a customer service manager assigned to Terrebonne Parish. So that will happen at the beginning of March. We also have one of our customer service specialists who some of you may work with, Greta Kimball. She is one of the individuals who handles a lot of the orders and billing inquiries that are associated with Terrebonne Parish. So she's another employee that works for us there. And then my immediate supervisor, who you referenced earlier, that was here at the last council meeting in December, Yovanka Daniel, she sends her apologies. She's actually out of the country, but indicated to me to make sure the council knew that if there are any issues, that she's also available to meet with you or the parish president on anything when she's back. And she'll be back this weekend, but I wanted to mention that to you. Just give you a quick overview just about Hurricane Ida. As you know, it's been about 5+ months since Hurricane Ida impacted our state, and certainly Terrebonne Parish is right in the thick of it. In terms of damages, as you may know or may have read, 30,000 poles were damaged across the state of Louisiana for Entergy when that storm hit. That's double the number of poles that we lost in Hurricane Laura, and it's more than the combined storms of Katrina, Ike, Delta, and Zeta. So it was a pretty significant storm, as you can imagine, across our service territory. There's about 1.16 million poles in Entergy Louisiana service territory. So about 3% of the poles were what were damaged, and we own roughly about 890,000 of those poles. The rest of the poles are owned by AT&T and other entities. So there's a sharing of poles, as you know, across the state. Here in Terrebonne Parish itself, there's roughly about 23,000 Entergy poles that we own for electric distribution in the parish. And then in addition to that, there's about 7,300 poles that AT&T and other entities own in the parish. When Hurricane Ida struck Terrebonne Parish, we lost roughly about 3,300 poles from Entergy. So that's roughly about 14% of the poles in Terrebonne Parish. As you know, part of the restoration process when a storm hits is to make sure that we restore power quickly and safely. It's followed by permanent repairs after those restoration is done. So we don't necessarily repair all the streetlights as the power is being restored, because our job is to try to get everybody back up with electrical service as quickly as possible. And as you probably saw during the storm, there were quite a few contractors and Entergy and other utility companies that came here, and that's the goal. Once we finish those permanent repairs, then what we do is we go back and remove the leftover debris, such as discarded poles and wires, and I know there's probably still some that are out there, which could be ours or AT&T, but there is a process that we follow, especially when we're removing facilities like transformers that fall from poles. We have to make sure they're removed environmentally safe to make sure that nothing's left behind. So that just kind of gives you an overview of what happened in the storm, and I wasn't sure if that had been provided to the council when the storm restoration was being done. So now I want to transition over to the streetlight repairs, which I know is something that has been impacting Terrebonne Parish and all of the parishes that were in the path of the storm. What happened is last year, probably around the middle to latter part of November, we initially began to start repairing streetlights. It took us approximately about 3 months just to get all of the electric services back up across our system. So the crews that we had were really focusing on that part of the operation. So we realized that there were more streetlights that were out, but we really didn't know how many. So in November and December, we hired a third-party company to come to the impacted areas, of which Terrebonne Parish is one of them, to conduct an assessment of all the damaged and missing streetlights that we have on our mapping system for the parish. So what we found in that assessment, which was completed probably right before Christmas, the data was sent to me personally, and then I was able to go through and really start digging through the information to kind of see what was happening in each of the parishes. Essentially, 59% of the streetlights, and those are both parish-owned and Entergy-owned streetlights that are on our mapping system, were found to be damaged or not found according to our maps. So we bill the parish for approximately 8,386 streetlights on your streetlight bills in Terrebonne Parish. And that is only the parish. So if a municipality in the parish has their own streetlights, like the city of Houma, that's separate. So that's where we are with the assessment. So what are we going to do about it? So we initiated a request for proposal to bring on additional contractors because we know that we have to have the resources to be able to make the repairs. We do have current, what we refer to as baseload contractors that are now starting to do some of the repair work for these streetlights, but we know we need more than that. So we went ahead and issued the RFP, and right now we're in the process of bringing on 2 additional contracting companies to the Entergy service area to basically do all the streetlight repairs in the impacted areas. We should have that contract completed actually by this week. I was actually on a phone call with our operations, distribution operations team, as well as with our supply chain team, going through the RFP, and so we were able to decide on the 2 companies that will bring on additional resources. And as many of you know, one of the challenges that we've had, and businesses have had in general, is just finding people. It's a challenge, and so we're really trying to make sure that the additional contracted resources are available to make these repairs. The one thing about streetlight repairs, it's not necessarily being able to send an individual like an electrician out to do the repair. It's a very skilled set of experiences that these contractors have to have. You're dealing with secondary wires that are live, and so we just need to make sure that from a safety perspective that the mechanics that we're bringing on board with these contractors are certified to be able to do these kind of repairs. And that's a skill set that's not easily found. So it took us probably about a month to get this RFP out because we were trying to make sure that we had as many contracting companies that we work with available to bid on this contract, and we ended up getting these 2 companies that we already use. They're just going to bring on more people from other areas that they work in. So with that being said, initially when we did the request for proposal, we thought that we could get all the streetlights repaired by the end of this first quarter, but now it's actually moving to sometime in the second quarter. So the plan is not to do individual parishes. We want to do multiple parishes all at one time because we know that Terrebonne is having streetlight issues, Lafourche is having streetlight issues, St. Charles is having streetlight issues. So all of the parishes that were in the path of the storm that had significant damages, they're all in the same boat. And so we're trying to make sure that we bring in those contractors that can hit those parishes at the same time. So the other thing that I wanted to mention about the project is materials. As soon as we started doing the assessments and started realizing how much damage there was for streetlights, we started ordering the materials, the lamps, the arms, the wiring, all of the different components that are necessary for putting in streetlights. We've begun ordering those. And initially there were some challenges from a supply chain perspective, but our supply chain team has really worked hard to make sure that, knowing that we were going to have all this work, they went ahead and started bringing all this in so that when the contractors come in, we'll have the materials to do the work. There may be some items that might be short, but they've already anticipated that. Like I mentioned, contracts are being executed so that we can begin the onboarding for these contractors as soon as possible. And one of the things that I have asked our operations folks to do is to make sure that we get a weekly update of where these contractors are going to be working so that we can share that information proactively with you at the parish council level, the parish president's office, to make sure the constituents know where we're working. I know that's an important part of our plan, to make sure that everybody is informed of what we're doing. One of the things that I also wanted to mention about the streetlight rates or tariffs is that at any given point in time, we don't really have 100% of the lights always on. There's always, about 10% built into the streetlight rate of those lights that aren't working. So that's already kind of put into the price. So, that happens all the time. So the goal is to make sure we get all the street lights out. When we finish all the work that we do, we know we're probably going to have some that go out, and so we have the process to be able to repair those lights. And so that process for the rates has really been put in effect probably for the last 30 years. So so that gives you a little bit of more background on our contracting resources that we're bringing in to help restore the street lights. Streetlight bill credits, that's another issue. As you know, in September, there was no power here, and you were still getting the streetlight bill and presumably was being paid by the parish. What we have done is we have issued a full streetlight credit to the parish of Terrebonne for all of the charges that you received for streetlight bills in September, because we didn't have any power there. The next part of the equation for refunding the parish credits on their electric bills for streetlights is to look at the October, November, and December bills, and we'll be issuing credits based on the assessments that were done back in November, December. So we'll provide another credit for those 3 months. And as we go through the process of restoring power, if they're not all completed by the end of January, we'll basically go through the same process. At the end of January, we'll go through the same process. So it's a little bit cumbersome for the billing process, but I have taken it under my manager or vice president's advisement to get it done. So like I said, we've already issued the streetlight credit for the month of September for the whole month. We've also paused the billing for streetlights so we can get the credits in place. So just as a point of reference, if you've gotten a streetlight bill and it says you're getting a disconnect notice, don't worry about that. We've coded all the accounts that they've been noted not to take any action, and it's just a formality that happens within our system. But we won't return to normal billing until all the credits have been applied to the streetlight accounts. And that's the overview of what we're doing to try to make sure we get the lights back on. It's certainly a challenge with the pandemic and getting resources, but we are trying to work through it. I know there's areas where you may have, like you said, hot spots that need to be addressed, and we certainly want to take action to make sure we address those areas for safety concerns. And we are using, like I said, our base load contractors that are normally assigned to streetlights to begin doing those repairs. I want to bring Mary Fay back up if I can, just so she can give you a little bit of an update of some of the repairs that we've made from requests that we've gotten, and then we'll be more than happy to take any questions from the council. So, Mary Fay?
Hi, Mary Fay Legnan, 308 Oak Tree Road in Belle Chase, Louisiana. In December, we were able to repair 13 lights and replace 7 that were missing. You discussed that the parade routes, they did a blitz this past weekend, and they repaired 92 lights on the route. When was the last time you passed?
Night before last.
Okay.
70, 85.
Could you shoot me an email of those streets that still have lights out so that I can let them know that maybe they missed it or maybe they repaired it and it went out right after?
Okay.
So that we can get back.
It was 2 nights ago.
Okay, because this weekend, they sent in a crew and they repaired 92 lights.
Okay.
So just let me know which ones still need to be repaired.
I'll do it, thanks.
Okay. Are there any other questions that y'all may have regarding streetlights? Be kind, Dirk.
We probably will have some as we go along, if y'all can just...
I think the majority of them were on the east side because that's where the heavily damaged areas were.
Thank you.
Okay. Chair recognizes Ms. Domingue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question is, whenever these streetlights are being replaced, are they going to be upgraded to LEDs?
That would be a decision made by the council.
Typically not, because, and I'll try not to get too technical with the answer, but the rates that are charged for non-LED lights are less than LED lights. And I know that doesn't make sense because LED lights use less energy. The fuel component that's associated with the rate for the electricity that each of those lights uses is lower. But the initial cost of the LED fixture is much higher. And so when the rates were designed, they were designed to be at a higher price than the non-LED lights. Now, I will say that the company recognizes that the market is changing. The manufacturers that produce the non-LED lights, so the metal halide and the high-pressure sodium lights, which is the amber color, those manufacturers are telling us they are no longer going to be able to provide us with those lights. And so we're going to have to find other sources. So the company is in the process of looking at the rates so that we can adjust the rates to be able to offer the LED fixtures at a much more competitive price than what you're currently paying now for the non-LED lights. So I hope that kind of helps answer the question. But you know, if you were to go ahead and request to have the LED lights installed to replace the non-LED lights, it would definitely be at a much higher rate. And we can go through and show you the rate comparison so you can see what you're paying now and what it would go to and the impact it would have on the bill.
So that would be up to Ms. Candace Malden, and so we'll have to discuss that with her at a later time, but I appreciate that clarity. I have several spots that are very dark in the district I represent. St. Louis Canal Road has several dark spots. Estate Drive is a very difficult area because all of the poles are actually twisted. And I've spoken to Mr. Brown about this, and I also had an email that I was on with Mr. Toops about this. They're metal poles, but they all have been twisted, and they're so there's going to need some significant work on Estate Drive. Jennings Lane, which is one of those high crime areas. Park Avenue, which is basically downtown up until Hollywood Road, is dark, and much of Lisa Park subdivision. And so I think one of my colleagues up here had mentioned earlier a point of contact, and so I think it would be easier for all of us if we had one point of contact that we would report those streetlights or those areas to moving forward, and in that way it will take a lot of the confusion out of it for us.
I can serve as that conduit. I mean, I know it's a lot, but I think my previous life in the lighting group will just help me facilitate that process. And
what is your email then?
I'll give you my business card.
Okay, that would be wonderful. I appreciate that.
I know it may seem like a lot, but I think in the long run, I understand the responsiveness that you would like to have regarding these repairs. And if you're going through different folks and it's not getting taken care of, I as an employee don't want that to hinder the work that we need to get done.
Absolutely.
So, so I appreciate you sharing that with us. I'm taking a lot of notes, but I think that that will help facilitate the process.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And Mr. Ernie just went in the back, but I do want to kind of give a shout out to Tpcg because they have done a fantastic job getting our lights back on. I know their scope is not as big as what you guys have, but I do appreciate that. And so when y'all see Mr. Ernie, let him know that I'm giving him a shout out right here. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Mr. Michel.
Thank you all for being here. First of all, from a historic standpoint, first of all, I want to congratulate Miss Mary Fay on your retirement. But I want to more so congratulate you on your career. You've done a great job. You've been there every time I've called. You've called back, whether it's been at 6 o'clock in the morning or whether it's been on the weekend. I never expected it, but you always surprised me. And I thank you for that. And historically, the service that Entergy has provided in my area has been unsurpassed. It has been beautiful, okay? Now, we all know that Ida is a whole different ball of wax, and we expect that. And when I look at it, I see the priority to be safety issues first, trying to get these campers all hooked up second, okay? Getting that parade route, because that'll be a safety issue before long. The main arteries, and then we're going to get to the subdivisions, okay? That's what I see. I don't know if that's on track or not, but that's what I see. And people are calling me all the time, and of course I'm telling them, you know, this is the way it is right now, and it's going to get done. But what they're asking is that if it's going to take 4 months, that we tell them 4 months, okay? Because this one guy called me this past week, and he says they told him it was going to be at the beginning of December. Then at the beginning, and they kept putting it off, and that's what's frustrating. I think anybody understands what y'all are going through, what we are going through, and now that y'all got these contractors coming on, that's a beautiful thing. So if we could give them a realistic time frame, I think that'd be great. Now, another question I have. This is so widespread. Is it even necessary to report the street light outages, or are y'all assessing that on your own?
Well, we've assessed the streetlights. I mean, you can report streetlights out on our website on myentergy.com. You can go in and report a streetlight out. One of the things that we want to make sure is that as we assess the number of reported tickets that we get, that they're going through and removing the duplicates. And with streetlights, it could be a little bit of a challenge, because if you put in an address, 123 Main Street, it's in front of your house, and then the person across the street is 456 Main Street, and they put in the same streetlight, it's sometimes can be a little challenging to kind of make sure as you're looking at the information, if it's a different light or if it's the same light. So, that's part of the challenge that our work management team has to disseminate when they send out those tickets. But if you do have an outage, we certainly want to know, so we can make sure that we have that request recorded.
I've sent in a list. I want to say it was over 100 of them on a spreadsheet. A couple of months ago, okay? But my granddaughter and I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and drove around, okay? And we just wrote as much down as we could, and we sent it, and I know it was disseminated to where it needed to go.
Okay.
So if you get to a situation where you go to an address and you realize, hey, this is not an Entergy issue, this is a Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government issue, do you all report it directly to them?
That's correct.
Okay, so we don't have to try to determine.
The street lighting group turns it over to the parish if it does not belong to Entergy.
Okay, very good. And did I understand you correctly? Can we anticipate that virtually all of the streetlights will be repaired by summer?
That's the plan, yes.
Okay, well, that's a beautiful plan.
Yes.
I really think that's a beautiful.
Before June 1st, which is the start of another hurricane season.
Yeah, thank you for putting it that way. Okay, and that's all the information that I needed. And again, Ms. Mary Fay, I just can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for saying that.
Well, I hope so much that somebody comes in who's at least 2/3 as good as you. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hold on, Chairman recognizes Mr. Navy.
Yeah, I'll be quick because I know you got some other lights here. I made a little list, but first of all, Mary Fay, I would like to do the same thing. Gerald stole my thunder there, but thank you for your service, because for the last 10 years, well, I say 10 years, but yeah, it's been 10 years, yes. God, it's been a long time. But 10 years that I've been here, I've always contacted you. You've done a lot. I can actually say, unfortunately, my district is a high crime area, and you addressed a lot of street light issues that really helped a lot, and I do understand that. But the difficulty of my district is something that's very unique, and I have serious problems with that, is the fact that my district serves 2 utility companies, City of Houma and Entergy, and sometimes on the same street. That is a problem. That is a serious problem for me, and I'm going to some other issues with that. But I would like to thank you for that, not the fact that what you serve as utility director, actually what you've done for the community. Every time I came to you in Entergy for scholarships and support of this parish, the children of this parish, for toys and all that kind of stuff, you all did that, okay? So you played a double role here, and I appreciate that from all my heart. Lord knows You're going to be blessed. You're going to stay blessed because you did what you had to do. Now, on the other issues, parade routes, okay, and that's great. I'm glad you're doing it for safety purposes, but as other safety issues that this parish need to address too. I understand you won't worry about the routes of the parades, but you still have subdivisions of neighborhoods out there, especially in the high crime areas with no lights, that needs to be addressed, not just from the energy perspective. I understand why we're not leaving out Sleeker too. We still got street lights out in Sleeker, City of Houma, and Tpcg, okay? It's 3 utilities companies we're dealing with, not just one. All 3 of them should actually have been here. I know Ernie here, but I don't know if Sleeker's here or not. Okay, so my safety issues, my parade routes is an issue because people are asking me, Mr. Navy, I'm here that they so-called going for the street lights first. What about our neighborhoods? You know what I tell them? Call Ernie Brown, or call Tpcg, or call the parish president. I don't know the answer to that question because safety is a purpose no matter where you are at. A parade route is a parade route. At the end of the day, after that parade route is gone, guess what? Those street lights are still out in them neighborhoods, man. Whatever. Okay, another issues I have, the fact that we're dealing with a historical storm. Everybody know that. Okay, you're seeing something that's great. You're coming up with a logic model, what I call it, okay? So this the logistics of it. Before we get to another storm of this magnitude, there needs to be a master disaster comprehensive plan when all these people are getting together. Don't allow this to happen. I can't believe that Terrebonne Parish know that we have been through this before with all these street lights out, yet we don't have a jointly plan to put on. We got a process, we got, Homeland Security and everyone else, but we don't have a plan to put in place to say this would need to happen when the magnitude of a storm happening that affect our community the way it does. That way everybody would know what the right hand and left hand is doing. This was silly. Because when I spoke to Comcast, they said, Mr. Navy, you're right, because we had to wait on other issues to take place before we get cable and all that other kind of stuff on. People didn't know because they said nobody was working together because nobody knows. But you knew that one day this would happen because it has happened in the past, not at this magnitude. But we should have learned from Katrina. But we don't seem to say that we need to put something together because everybody have a problem with to say that we know how to do this, and we don't. Yeah, just my truth. And I talked about the high crime area, but Jules said something in reference to, I think, in part where you give my light to him. But Mary Faye, I just want to tell you once a time, you have always been a big help for me, okay, in my district. So when I call you, you address those issues. And I really, really, truly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. But once again, we all need to do some hard work here. We need to get at the table and make a plan for the next catastrophe, because it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen. Trust me. We didn't think it was happening before, but it's going to happen.
Mr. Hebert, do you have? Okay, go ahead.
I got a question, and just so the council know, Ernest has been developed on our GIS system. Every light in every street. So if you need to know if a light's on a certain side of the street, he can tell you what road light district it's in. That is on our GIS system. You just need to get with Ernest and request it. The next thing, I got a question. Y'all are paid through the
Mr. Hebert, could you ask the question in the mic if you don't mind?
Yes. Well, I just want to address him so he can. Y'all are paid by the road lighting districts, correct? You get paid. You bill a road lighting district.
Right, the Terrebonne Parish.
Road lighting district. Okay. As I understand it, though, the road lighting districts are regulated, and y'all regulated by a Public Service Commission written tariff. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. You would help out a lot if you could send the tariff agreement to me, Candace, and Mr. Toops.
Sure.
Okay. I know it's at the PSC website, but all these questions that are being answered, who's got to go check on the light, who's got to try, is in that tariff. And I happen to know that because of something that happened down Chauvin a few years ago. All right, and it's an old document, but it is at the PSC's website, I believe.
Well,
also.
We actually have it at our Treasury website, so I can do that very easily.
And what I'm saying is that if we have the written tariff, a lot of these questions that are being asked will be answered in that tariff agreement, isn't it?
Correct.
Great.
Correct.
Thank you for the information, Mr. Hebert. Chair recognizes Mr. Guidry, Dirk Guidry.
Good evening. Mary Fee,
congratulations on your retirement. I can't wait when my turn comes around. You've done an outstanding job. Like myself and Mr. Navy, we've both been here 10 years, and you've done a fantastic job for Terrebonne Parish and the people. I know we've had a historic storm. I know we've had a lot of damage. I know a lot of these poles and all were junk before, and everybody knows it. You know, Miss Mary, we're not going to ice it or nothing, and I don't ice anything, but the poles were junk before, and they had a company coming around, Line Tech or whatever they are, and they were changing poles. And they were changing poles about the rate of 1.5 poles to 2 poles a day. But with all the poles that had triple X's that were rotten and no good, that had been rotten for years, these guys told me it would have took 1.5 years to 2 years for these guys by themselves to do it. So what really gets me on this is the poles y'all had were rotten, okay? So in the long run, the hurricane came, 165, 170 miles an hour, whatever it is. It was a major storm. Came and knocked these poles down. But now, the poles that were no more good, and with all the damage that they had, the constituents that I have and everybody that's on energy has to pay what it is, $11 a month for the next 15 years to pay for poles that energy should have changed before, you know? I'm gonna get off of that subject. The street lights, we need to get them done, because I've got a group of people from Smith Ridge community that came to me yesterday morning complaining about street lights. From 5,000 block to 5,100 block on Bicentennial Drive is where I go home every night, and that's about 3/4 of a mile to 1 mile. There's 9 street lights out. There's 3 street lights, and when the crew before you guys came up, there was 3 street lights per mile for 16 miles, you know? That's unacceptable. And, you know, I find it coincidental that I raised all kind of bull about these street lights, and I bitched about the lights that was out in my parking lot that I pay energy for. Are y'all gonna give me a reimbursement for that? I mean, I got lights that I've been paying for 5 months that I didn't have until coincidentally, you guys are coming here today, and about 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, they came and fixed my light. Is that coincidental, or you know what I mean?
But to answer your point, we will issue a credit for those.
You know, and it's not just me. It's the St. Joseph Church. I mean, these parishioners and all, they get out, they pay these lights.
Right.
It's the drugstore, Lil Kaya, they pay these lights. But enough with street lights. I'm gonna take it to your word that you guys will fix my street lights, because when you start going down the bias, it's pitch black dark, you know what I mean? Until last night, the only way my workers can lock the door at night is when they took that flashlight and put that flashlight in the lock of my doors so they can see the locks. And this is 5.5 months now. That's unacceptable, you know? But with that, you know, we have another kind of problems too, you know? On Lower Bicentennial Drive, I think y'all got it converted where we getting power from the Koto station to feed down the bayou. Well, the problem we're having a low voltage problem. There's a lot of people that's been, their appliances, their air conditions, their heaters, and all been burning up. I know the 2 residents for sure, not a few miles, well, maybe half a mile apart from each other, where energy came in and they complained about it. Energy came in and they changed the transformer, said it's a transformer problem. Well, I got a guy that worked for the City of Power, and he retired from the City of Power, and he told him, no, you have an energy problem where there's not enough voltage coming through here. So they went ahead and they changed the transformer, okay? And it came back, said, wow, we got the same problem. The lineman said, you know, we have a low voltage problem. And then a few houses down the road, the same thing. They came in and changed the transformer, but there's a low voltage problem. One of the guys called the energy, and he reported it, that all his stuff's burning up in his house. And you know what they told him? Send us a bill, we're gonna pay for it. But how about everybody else? You know?
Those streets?
It's Bicentennial Drive.
Okay. We'll check the voltage on that.
You know, I mean, you know, a lot of people are losing that property because there's a voltage problem here, you know? It's, you know, it's just frustrating, Miss Mary. It's frustrating. Let me tell you, I've been on this council for 10 years. I've not had more calls in my whole 10 years combined more than I'm having problem with energy calls. I get 3 and 4 every day. I've been getting 3 and 4 every day for the last 5 months, probably even more than that before. Now I got problems with energy not hooking up FEMA campus. I got a camper across the street from me that this guy has had a green tag, like, well, I'm gonna go back with Steve, a green tag on the box for over a month. I've got some people that have green tags on their boxes since before Christmas that's not hooked up yet. That's unacceptable, Miss Mary, that these people, you know, they can't get in that trailers until the electric's hooked up and FEMA comes in and inspects it and all that. But you guys are holding up people from having a place to sleep at night, a warm place. You know, and you know, I could jump on my high horses, but I feel sorry for these people. I should be jumping on my high horse.
Are all the processes met? Did they set up a...
Well, there's a green tag on the box. Once there's a green tag on the box.
Hold on. We're kind of out of order here because I'm sorry we didn't prepare you for that because our agenda is streetlights. So we're going to keep our conversation if you don't mind.
Okay, Ms. Mary, can y'all come back next week and we'll talk about it next council meeting? Okay, put that on the agenda for energy to come back in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Guidry. We are keeping to open meetings laws, which the state of Louisiana says we have to allow Entergy the ability to bring in people. They have to know what's on the agenda, and on the agenda is road lighting. If it had been expanded, we could expand it, but Mr. Harding.
Yes. Whether it's poles, aluminum poles, or decorative street lights, I would say so much that every street in my district is high crime. But then every street in my district is important. And a District 2. And when I get a phone call, and I think the problem where I have is the fact that have to send an email to one person to the next person and then wait a while. There's a particular time frame that we have to wait. And then it becomes a communication problem. Going back to what Mr. Navy was saying is that, and then I gather what everyone else is saying is that when we communicate to whoever, whether it's Sleeker or whether Ernie or whether you guys, is the fact that the feedback, how fast that we can get the feedback. So we're looking for a better way to have a reporting system. You heard Mr. Michel, he actually brought his daughter up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It'd be rather, kind of out of my character to be riding around at 4 o'clock in the morning trying to look at some lights. So we're relying on the citizens of Terrebonne Parish to actually have an opportunity to report a light out. Like Mr. Trustclair, who's going to speak a little later on, the house and the street light in front of his house. One would assume that, he sits on the council that, it will find favor, which we don't do up here. Yeah. Yeah, but the thing is the fact that even man is Mr. Trustclair's stature, we see that we have a problem. So we need, we addressed something previously with Mr. Mike Toos that, we want to have a reporting system. And if we can actually have the reporting system to come in and everybody tie in to that reporting system. Mr. Ernie is working on something we can map, hopefully we can actually interact with lights and complaints and stuff like that and get a one-call system. If you go dig somewhere else, and there are areas that you get a one-call. You can get everything across the board checked out. So maybe we can actually work with that with a one-call system. To start off, like Mr. Navy was saying, that after catastrophes like we have like this, Mr. Earl Hughes, he's working on something to see the do's and don'ts and how well we did and how we improved. So looking forward to looking for the feedback, a better way of communication, a better way of reporting individuals. There's 9 council people up here, and like Mr. Dirk Guidry said, that you get a constant call, and it's difficult to actually have your constituents sitting in a neighborhood. I live on Prince Collins, and there are certain sections down there, even in the city, and it's back order on lights. We understand that. But we need to have some type of feedback, because when they call me, I want to be able to give them an answer. I don't want to dodge one of the phone calls of my constituents. So, you know what I mean? And that's the position I think every guy, or every person up here that actually takes. They want to take care of their people, but then we can't give them any answers. So hopefully with this session that we're having up here, I think communication is key and feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Ms. Domingue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it sounds like everybody up here has similar difficulties. And so after speaking with legal, I would like to make a motion that we complete an analysis between Energy and Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government. And Mr. Jules, you want to clarify that a little bit?
You could request.
Hold on, Mr. Hebert.
Yes,
Go ahead, Mr. Hebert.
you could request that administration between its Energy Department and Finance do an analysis as to all the lights in the district. If you want to change them to LED, how many you could do at a time, would it go forward, what would be the savings? And you could give administration, you have to give significant time for them to do that study and come up with that study. And then look at the tariff agreement to see what is their responsibilities, energies, and changing out lights and what goes on. I'm sure I got a feeling that it's all covered in there. It's a big agreement. But I know one of the things about who's supposed to go check lights, and that's all in there. So that would be, you'd have to make that in the form of a motion to administration as to what you want done.
Okay, so can my motion be that I concur with legal to make that,
Yeah, I mean, but I would wait till his discussion over with on the question.
No, we're still having discussion in relation to street
just
lighting.
defer your motion.
Okay, I'll defer until the end.
Until it's finished.
Thank you.
Finish, Ms. Domingue?
Yes.
Chair recognizes Ms. Dirk Gidry.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to have an add-on so I could discuss more with Energy.
So we have a motion from, well, I guess we could do that at this time.
Yes.
We have a motion from Mr. Dirk Gidry to do an add-on to the agenda, to this item on the agenda, Mr. Dirk Gidry, and just add.
Different aspects with Energy, so they don't have to lose time to come back over here for nonsense,
Okay.
Mr. Gidry.
And what exactly is the, to add on?
The add-on is what I'll talk about Energy.
To add on discussion concerning.
Energy, discussion
Okay,
concerning.
what do those guys type up in the minutes, Mr. Gidry? Give me the exact add-on. We're adding
I
on
want to
what?
talk about the FEMA trailers, and I want to talk about more streetlights. I wasn't finished, Mr. Gidry.
Okay, we want to add on the agenda that Mr. Dirk Gidry wants to add streetlights and what he just said, seconded by Mr. Danny Babin. Does any public, including yourself, do you protest to us adding this on the agenda?
No, I mean, we'll try to answer the question as best we can, and
Okay.
we'll have to come back.
Okay. Roll call vote, Mr. Hampton?
Mr. Darren Guidry?
Yes.
Mr. Babin?
Yes.
Mr. Dirk Guidry?
Yes.
Mr. Trosclair?
Yes.
Mr. Navy?
Yes.
Mr. Harding?
With everybody else, yes.
Mr. Michel?
It's such a unified council, yes.
Mr. Amade?
Yes.
Ms. Domingue?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Gidry, thank you for that.
Thank you, and excuse me for the interruption, Miss Mary Kay. You know, it just goes back, you know, these people with these FEMA campers and these small campers, they need a place to stay. And I mean, the hold up, I mean, it's starting to be ridiculous when it starts to be a month, 5 weeks that they're waiting for Energy to come and hook them up. And they already been inspected by the parish, you know? So, I mean, that's a big deal that I'm having with right now down these bayous, you know? So that's all I have to say about FEMA trails. If you'd left me go.
That's just in your district?
That's in my district for sure, and I'm
that
pretty sure it's
District
happening in Mr. Trosclair's district, you know. Mr. Babin doesn't have to worry about it too much. He has sleek in his district down Grand Kai, so, but it's a lot of, you know, there, you know. And, you know, like, streetlights, I'm having a lot of calls on streetlights, you know, in the 4100 block of Bicentennial Drive, all over the place I'm having problems with streetlights, you know. And another thing, and it was brought up a few years ago, is I don't know if people on the council were here when it was brought up, and you had came up here. But when streetlights go out, after you guys are going to have them all totally fixed, and they go out, Energy wants, and thank God, Mr. Dove got the city to go and do it 2 times for us. Because when we have to go out and y'all want a council person to go put a red flag on a pole to show y'all and call y'all and tell y'all what street lights out. Do y'all understand that
A lot of these poles are sitting in the marshes down these bayous. Why, since we pay in Road Lighting District number 7 in 2021, we paid $169,085 for streetlights. Why should it be Dirk Gidry's responsibility to go out there and do it? Why can't y'all have every 6 months, quarterly, whatever you guys come up with, drive down these highways and mark them out? Why should I have to do it? Or why should the parish have to pay the city police to go down out of that districts to mark these poles that have got burnt streetlights on it? That makes absolutely no sense to me at all, you know?
Is this a main thoroughfare?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. When you start going all the way to Cocodrie, Miss Mary, they got streetlights that's in the marsh.
Okay.
You know, what am I supposed to do? Put hip boots and get my P-roll and go out there and put a red flag on them?
No.
You know, and this is something that I just can't really understand why we as council people, I mean, these people that live in the city, it's nothing to jump out your car and tire, you know? But here I am on a busy highway, Highway 56, going down the bayou, cars are flying 50 and 60 miles an hour, and I got to get out at night to go and mark streetlights, because that's the only way I can tell, you know?
Right.
If y'all can do that for me, and I know Mr. Trosclair has the same problems down there, it would be a great help, you know?
Okay.
And, you know, but in closing, please see what y'all can do about these street lights as fast as y'all can. And, do y'all know the difference in prices by putting up a regular street light versus a LED?
Yes, I mean, that's part of what we're going to provide is the rate comparison. I was going to mention that we have the ability to show the difference between what you're currently paying for a non-LED light versus what you would pay for an LED light, and it compares all of the cost.
Yeah, but the deal is right now, we don't have time to do that. I mean, if you guys are going to go put up brand new street lights, regular street lights, we don't want to have y'all to come back in 5 months and have to take the street lights that y'all just put up and change them back to LEDs. Well, you know, if we could do them all at one time, because there's a lot of street lights.
I think they said you have to have a council to approve
right,
it,
that's
to
why,
ask, because you're going to be paying.
That's why I'm asking you if you know the price difference.
We do.
You know,
He does, he just doesn't have it at
You
hand.
don't have it with you.
Yeah, I don't have it with me. I mean, I have the information that he asked about for the rate tariffs.
Mr. Jules, go ahead. You on to my light? Go ahead, yes, sir.
Wait, hold on. Chair recognizes Mr. Hebert.
Thank you. Mr. Gidry, that was going to be part of the motion of Councilman Domingue, which she wanted done to give enough time to give the analysis of the difference in cost. Let's look at the tariff. Let's see if they got to subsidize it. So you have to give the staff enough time to get, that between Candace, it's got to go Candace and Ernest. And then come back to the council with a report.
I know, but the deal is, Jules, government runs so slow. You know what I mean? And I ain't got 8-9 months for the council to fight about it and figure it out before we start putting lights up. And it would be senseless for these guys to go put lights up, and in 5 months, when we decide that we want them LED, for them to go back and change them again.
Well, I'm saying is that's beyond me. I mean, that would be a Candace question, is the amount of money. If she thinks that it's something that could be done, if it's not a lot and it could be handled, and the road light districts has the money, or the parish has the money, then she could make a decision whether she could put it on the agenda for next time. I mean, that's, you understand, Councilman Gidry, I don't know what the costs are.
Anything else, Mr. Dirk Gidry?
Yeah, Ms. Mary, would there, or Sir, Mr. Al, would there be any delay right now? Do you know when you guys are planning on starting to put up streetlights?
Well, the plan was we're executing the contract now, get the contract workers here as soon as possible, which for me means within the next week, and start hitting the streets.
Well, I'm not stopping you. You know what I mean? We'll just let you, we'll just let you put the regular ones up. In 5 months, we're going to come back and change the LEDs.
And that's fine. I think, in the long run, as you probably know, the LED lights require very little maintenance.
Right.
They last longer.
Fuel was cheaper.
The fuel part is cheaper, but I think to Mr. Hebert's point, the tariffs are what we really have to evaluate to make sure that the parish understands the differential in cost. And you can do it over a period of time. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we are at Entergy looking at the actual rate schedules, because we know that there's a disparity between non-LED and LED lights, and in the market, we really have to make that more competitive so that we can put LED lights in and remove the non-LED lights. I mean, in the long run, I think that's what we want to do, just to reduce the maintenance.
I know in some areas they've put in a resolution that when we repair a light, we upgrade it to LED.
Right.
So that can be put in to where every time we go and repair a light, it's upgraded to LED.
Right.
Yeah, because it might not hurt us because we lost a lot of residents from these lower buys and our millages are going to be going down, you know, so.
So that can be done immediately.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have, Miss Mary, but if y'all can see about, take care of these street lights.
Yes, sir.
But please see if you can take care of these people with these FEMA campers that don't have electricity and where they can move into these, you know.
Councilman, I took notes on that. The FEMA trailers is something that I know is an issue across the region, and I know we're working with FEMA directly on some of these. So I have a note to follow back up on this specifically.
Yeah.
On the FEMA trailer.
And the GoSep trailers.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of
Treat
those.
them the same.
All
Right.
One question more I got, when the last crew came and talked to us, I asked them a question. How many people do you have working for energy in Terrebonne Parish? He told me 12. Can I re-ask that question?
You can ask.
How many linemen do you have working in Terrebonne Parish?
That I don't know, but I can find out for you.
4. I know the answer, 4. Out of the 12 people y'all got on energy, y'all have 4 linemen taking care of all of Terrebonne Parish. Thank you. Miss Mary? Thank you, sir. I hope I didn't get
I
too...
know there's about 12 in that
Right, but there's
area.
4 linemen working in Terrebonne Parish. Take my word for it. Research
The
it.
other one's working.
Well, driving the truck around, seeing how many street lights are burning. But listen, thank you all for coming, and I hope I wasn't too hard on you for your last little meeting
sir.
with me.
Thank you.
And thank you for the, sorry about the interruption we had. Thank you.
Council Chair, can I make one final comment?
Well, we still have some more lights, but go ahead and make a comment.
Okay. I just wanted to address council members' comments about the, to get prepared, before a storm hits. We certainly do have lessons learned that we disseminate amongst all of the participants in the storm restoration to kind of make sure we understand where we could make improvements. And I'll be the first to admit that every storm is different, and as long as I've been in the business, I always learn something new. And one of the things that we're trying to do with our emergency preparedness or EOC directors, later on in May, there's going to be a conference in Lake Charles with all the EOC directors across the state. We want to be a part of that because I think it's important, like you mentioned, that there's collaboration between not only the parishes and all the departments within the parishes and the state, but also the energy companies, because it's a crucial component of getting the restoration done. And some good examples is, removing debris right after the storm hits. We're trying to figure out where the damages are, but the parish is trying to get emergency vehicles in through certain areas. So, how do we work better to kind of get those kind of things taken care of? And certainly for me, the past 2 years, those were issues that had come up in various parishes. And so we need to do a better job collectively to address those. Okay.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Mr. Babin.
Yes, I felt a little left out. I just want to say that I've never had a problem with Entergy, all right? Because the district that I represent, I don't have an Entergy customer, all right? It's 95% Sleeker and the rest Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government, okay? The only connection I have is the fact that y'all transmission lines feed everybody coming in here. So that is a very important issue. But again, I want to thank y'all for coming and thank you for your service and enjoy your retirement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Mr. Michel.
Okay, so I have a question about the changing over to LEDs. Is there an initial charge, or is there just a monthly differential?
It's a monthly differential.
Okay, and so my thoughts on this is that we need to put that on the back burner, get the streetlights fixed, okay? And then come June, after we're satisfied that that's done, then do as Ms. Mary Faye suggested, and budget and or pass a resolution or an ordinance that allows us to replace them when we're already going out to do the work. There's no reason to go out and change all of these lights when they're working. Let's do them when it's time to do the work. And I mean, with that being said, I don't think we need to do a study. We don't need to waste. We have a lot of things that administration has to do. We have a lot of things that Entergy has to do. We don't need to muddy the waters with this right now. Let's at least wait until summer. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Mr. Babin.
Yes, just as a point of order, if we're going to use Robert's Rules of Order and everything, when we have an add-on, you need to open it up to public and close it to public. So if you're going to be the Robert Rules of Order,
We did invite
no,
public.
You asked them. You did not ask the public. Okay, and you did
all right.
not
So
Robert's Rules of Order. Let's do it.
All right, out of order. All right,
No, you're out of
moving on. Ms. Jessica Domang.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate the add-on because I do have a question that I've been wanting to ask you guys for quite a while. My father-in-law is 84 years old. His house was in Chauvin in Mr. Dirk Guidry's district, and half the house blew off like most of the houses down there. And so, of course, the power's been turned off for 5 months now. But every month he gets a bill for $130, $140, and it shows a meter reading every single month.
Because they're estimating it because they don't realize that the house has been damaged.
Okay.
You send me an email with his account number or his address, I will have it retro back to August 29th to final it. And it will cut off all
the back,
billing.
yeah.
Okay.
And don't pay it.
Okay, thank you. We've just been putting it on the refrigerator every single month.
A lot of people that we don't know whose house has been destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Okay, we're not aware of whose house was actually destroyed and whose house is livable. So if you have any constituents that their house is unlivable, or it may take a year or so to come back and build it, have them final that account back to August 29th. To where they're not responsible for any of those bills because it's an estimate if they're not being able to capture any kind of reading.
Okay, and I would just imagine there's probably tons of people that this has happened to, not
That's
just
correct.
on the bayou, but in the city as well.
It's everywhere, and we've had it for every storm. And we understand that people have a lot more on their mind than calling up to say, final my bill. But that's the only way that we know who has been completely damaged and, can't accept electricity and those that can.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, and I'll pass that information along as well. Now, Mr. Hebert, I'm sorry, Steve.
Okay. Chair recognizes Mr. Trosclair.
Yes, I thought we was almost finished, but I wanted to thank you guys for coming over. And Mary Faye, I'm going to one-up Mr. Michel because he said he woke you up early in the morning and late in the evenings. I got to speak to you overseas. You was on a trip somewhere.
I was in Mexico.
Mexico. So she answers my call in Mexico. So I appreciate everything you've done for me and you've done for the parish naturally. And, y'all been a good partners to the parish. The Energy has, even through trying times. But
Millions into the parish.
right,
through
definitely.
grants.
And we certainly appreciate that, and it's not going unnoticed. So once again, I appreciate you coming at my request to this meeting. I know it's taking time out of your schedule. I'm sure you're trying to cram in everything you can before retirement.
Yeah, I'm trying to get Medicare.
I got it.
Have you tried?
But enjoy your retirement and best of luck.
Thank you. And before we get to you, Ms. Jessica, we do have a couple of people who filled out speaker cards. If there's no objection, I'd like to let them speak now instead of at public comment time. Is there any objection? So if you don't mind, have a seat, stay.
Oh, they want to address us?
No, they want to address the council.
Regarding what?
It is regarding streetlights.
Oh, okay, so we can move.
So, no objection. Mr. Kevin Pellegrin. Go ahead and state your name and address for the record.
Kevin Pellegrin, actually president of Southern Estates Homeowners Association, 321 Sugar Plum Street, Houma, Louisiana. Thank you for the ability of introduction. I'd like to address Councilmember Trusclair. First and foremost, couldn't agree with you more that we've got a lot of hiccups in this process. I've been a volunteer president of our homeowners association for over 3 years. I've gotten to know Representative Amity very, very well over the time. I will tell you, the process is there for the reporting and for it to get fixed. The problem is it's too slow. And we've always gone over this problem of who owns the streetlights. I make the reporting through the parish website. When you make that report, they have 14 to 21 days for Energy to say, is it your light or is it the parish's light? I've always been patient. If a streetlight's out, 30 days. That's always been my turnaround. What's unacceptable at this stage is I've got over 40% of my neighborhood that is out. 40%. Before the storm, I had 20% of my neighborhood. I've reported it. There's a flaw in the process. Energy upgrades their meters, and now they're all Wi-Fi. Why can't they do the same thing with a port on each one of these streetlights? Bulb goes out, no connection. Problem solved. We know which streetlights are out. Here's where the bigger issue comes in. Again, I'm a volunteer president of the Homeowners Association. 240 parcels in my neighborhood that I represent. Not all of them belong to the HOA, but they're a part of my HOA. And when one of them calls and tells me, Kevin, I need help. I've got a concern. I've got somebody, I'm at a stop sign in full black that walks up next to my vehicle. What am I supposed to do? Look, I've reported the streetlights out at Southern Estates Boulevard since before the storm. All I can keep doing is reporting them. At what point do they stop believing us? What point do they stop believing you? We need to fix this problem. This can't be something we continue. This is something that's bigger than what we all think. It's the crime. We're hitting February, March area where we're going to get a cold snap. Last year, we had over 35 vehicles hit my neighborhood. I don't have half of the neighborhood lit right now. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to start popping locks. They came 5 foot from my door last year and tried to pop a lock. It's scary when we start thinking about it. So I make my reports in, they come around, and I don't know if it was the parish that did it, I don't know if it was Energy that did it. They started wrapping poles with little yellow tape. That's all that's happened. I've reported it, I've reported it, I've reported it. I'm now at the point, I don't know what else to do other than address the council and echo your concerns of where do we start. If I've got to go out there with a ladder, I guarantee you I probably have 10 or 15 of my residents that'll come help me do it. Let's get the problem solved, team.
Thank you, Mr. Pellegrin. Mr. Jeff Evans.
Jeff Evans, 389 Longdale Drive in Shreveville, Louisiana. I didn't think I would show up today and get a PhD on street lighting when I came here to speak, but apparently I am. I just wanted to share my experience with reporting street lighting. I live at 389. We've had a pole down in my yard since the hurricane, and I was very patient in reporting it because I knew it was not the priority at the time right after the hurricane. So I didn't report the street light being down until November 15th. To Entergy, saw no progress. We actually had the light de-energized once the power was restored because I do have 2 small kids. It was down on the ground. It did light up. So I caught an energy crew in the neighborhood and had them de-energize the pole for safety reasons. But it still sits there today. It's still sitting in the yard. So I reported on November 15th the pole down, saw no progress, so followed up with a phone call to Entergy on January 5th. Got a nice gentleman on the phone from Entergy who told me he couldn't find the work order, then realized that the work order through Entergy was miscategorized in a miscellaneous account, recategorized it and gave me a date of it being repaired on January 25th. So I was a little more proactive, like Mr. Pellegrin was speaking, and unlike Mr. Michaud at 4 o'clock in the morning, I went out about 8 o'clock in the evening and drove around the neighborhood and said, if they're going to be in my neighborhood to fix this pole, maybe we can make them a little more efficient and we can fix what poles need to be fixed in the neighborhood. Well, to my shock, we have 18 poles that are not working. That does not include the 12 to 15 poles that are leaning and can fall with the next storm. That is just non-working light poles. We have 52 poles total in my neighborhood, which is order on estates. So it's about 35% of our poles are not working at the present time. So I took it upon myself with a ladder, flagged every single pole and marked the street in front of the pole with orange arrows, called back Energy on the Monday before they were supposed to show up, told them I did this work so that when the crew was in the neighborhood, maybe we could make them a little more efficient, because I figured the work would be done during the day, and they'd have no idea other than the one pole that was reported or any other resident reported. On January 25th, we had no response. I called again, got a new date of January 31st. Still on January 31st, no crew showed up. Called back February 3rd and got a new date of February 28th that the poles are going to be fixed. My question here today to the council is, we pay a millage for the road lighting, and I looked at the 2020 figures. I didn't get the 2021 figures, but the parish total, as I added up, is about 1.7 million we pay in our road lighting districts throughout the parish. And my question is, I know Entergy said, as I've learned here tonight and got an education, that there's going to be a credit back to the parish. But how does that affect the residents who've paid this millage and is not getting the service out of the millage that they're paying? And that's my question really to the council, because until these lights are repaired, we have tax dollars we've paid and haven't got the service. And, you know, it is a safety issue, for sure. I have two small kids, and I live in a neighborhood that has some bigger parcels of land, so there is much distance between the homes, but I'm concerned with the crime as well. But my real question to the council is, what's the plan? And maybe this is a question for the tax assessor, I'm not sure, but...
And I can quickly answer that question for you, and that is, your tax is going to go down. If we have less expenditure this year, the tax will go down next year. It's adjusted every year based on how much money we need for the upcoming year. So if we don't need the money for next year, you will get a tax cut. So.
Okay, but I appreciate the answer, and I guess my follow-up question to that is, if we do convert to LED, I hope that tax credit is not eaten up by converting the poles to LED, because we obviously have working poles. We just need the work done on the poles. So I don't need to belabor this point anymore. I think we've talked long enough about street lighting, but that's just my opinion. But I appreciate y'all taking the time to hear me out. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Toop, did you want to add something? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to introduce to the council our new Tpcg electrical distribution superintendent, Mr. Robert Savoy. Robert took Hook's place, so he's got big shoes to fill.
Mr. Savoy, would you like to say anything? Put you on the spot.
I'm just honored for the opportunity and look forward to continuing to better the electrical system for Terrebonne Parish. So, thank you.
Thank you. We're happy to have you on board. And from the chairman, I did have a couple of questions for Entergy. And you guys will know if there's no street light at all on that pole, you will know that a street light goes there. Correct. Okay. And come to the mic if you don't mind, Miss Mary Faye.
They're going to look back at the mapping and see what was there and what is left, what's gone, to know what's missing to put it back.
And that work schedule idea is huge, and I support that. And if you could let them know that that's important to us to know what areas they're going to be working on, because that helps us when we get calls from residents that we kind of know what's going on.
I've already done
so that is huge.
Council Chair, because I know how important that is.
But thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it, and hopefully you'll come again when we need.
No, we will. No, I mean, we appreciate the feedback. I think it's important to ensure that we understand what the issues are from your constituents. You're responding to their needs. They need action, and so we're a partner with that. So we just want to make sure that we follow through on the items that we talked about and keep you informed.
Thank you, and I echo my colleagues, Ms. Mary Faye, and how much of an asset you've been to Entergy.
It's been a pleasure to serve y'all.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming.
I will leave some business cards for the council.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Preliminary discussion and possible.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Did you have,
Yes.
we're still in discussion. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Domingue.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hebert.
Mr. Hebert wants to be recognized. I'll recognize Mr. Hebert.
Yes, what I was saying is you need to make a motion with regards to what you want staff to do. As I understand it, was Ms. Malden advised the council earlier, is that to do these additional lights would require budgetary analysis, which is spending money, and if you don't have the analysis done by staff, then they can't come back and tell you how much you're going to spend, how it's going to be done, when it can be done, whether is done on repairs, and all that. So with all due respect, Mr. Michel, it needs
No, please do not stress any.
I understand, but I want to explain with all due respect, that's what's the need for the motion. Okay. That it needs to have a motion to have staff do an analysis of the cost of LED, when it should be done, and this gentleman brought something up a while ago about upgrades on a pole. He was talking about some new technology that would tell you when the lights are automatically out. I don't know what it is, but the staff can look at everything then and come back and tell you, got enough money, need more money, may have more money, I don't know. Okay, that's all. I think it's a motion. If the council wants it done, it needs to have a motion.
Okay, and is that your motion, Ms. Domingue?
That's my motion, and the energy representative was left, but they said they're coming in next week, so this should not hold up anything that are already doing and already starting. This will just be moving forward that we'll have to make this motion. And so I would like to concur with legal on the motion do a staff analysis on all lighting in Terrebonne Parish.
You got that motion, Mr. Keith? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. John Amity. Any discussion, Mr. Michel?
Yeah, just my point is that we have road lighting districts, and if we don't feel like we want to do that in our particular road lighting district, then why waste the resources of administration to do this? There are other more important things that need to be done right now. This is we can do this later. Entergy's working. By June, we expect to have lights back to a normal situation, and we can revisit it. But we don't need to do a parish-wide thing when some of the road lighting districts may not want to spend the money on that. They may want to just do it one at a time as they go out after they're all repaired. I don't want to take any chance that anything's going to slow Entergy down or administration down in doing the things that are more important than this right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Michel. Seeing no more discussion, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Show one nay, Mr. Michel. All right, moving on to item E. Preliminary discussion and possible action relevant to the creation of a Blue Ribbon Commission whose goal and mission will be to provide input on where and how Hurricane Ida relief funds should be spent. Chair recognizes Mr. Babin.
Yes, I put this on the agenda, and I purposely used the word preliminary, all right? Because I think and I hope everyone up here in this council knows that money from Hurricane Ida, from American Recovery, from stimulus money, from infrastructure money, takes a long time to come into this parish. And I also hope that everybody up here knows that CDBG money comes with strings attached, if for lack of a better word, that it can only be used in certain areas. But there will be some discretionary money involved in this, things that we can use in different areas. And I'm not trying to create a new committee on this council. A couple nights ago, two of y'all were on television and y'all explained.
Excuse me, that's out of order.
No, that's not out of order.
It is out of order.
Public television.
It is out of order. All right, I am shutting your light off, Mr. Babin. Anybody else who'd like to discuss this item?
You don't have that right.
Do we have a motion? All right, we're moving on. Item F.
You got a light on, okay?
Mr. Michel.
Okay, so I don't understand why you are autonomously cutting people's lights off. You don't have that authority, sir.
I do have that authority.
No, you don't. Who gave you
Excuse
that
me.
authority?
If you are out of order, you will not be recognized, and you are out of order. We're moving on.
Go on public television and talk about.
Do we have a motion?
Official, I cannot
Do we have a
talk about it
second?
here. I'm on the camera. I don't need the light. Okay?
Item F, resolution approving the Tpcg Civil Rights Title VI narrative. Excuse me, would you?
No, I won't.
Would you please?
Because you're wrong.
Excuse me.
This is what.
Item
ladies and
F,
gentlemen.
resolution approving. I will warn you again, Mr. Babin.
What do you want, the Robert Rules of Order?
Mr. Babin, you are disturbing this
Okay, thank you. So the-
organization.
Escort me out.
You are, if you continue, the police will escort you out.
Oh, okay, well, thank you.
Item F, resolution approving the TPCG Civil Rights Title VI Narrative Compliance Plan relative to the U.S. Treasury and other federal agencies. Do we have a motion? Moved by Mr. Steve Trosclair.
Second.
Second to Ms. Jessica Domain. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item F.
Yeah, I have something to say.
Okay.
Yeah, actually.
Go ahead, Mr. Harding.
I appreciate that. We're talking about some things, and item F, well, 1F, right? Okay, I got distracted a little bit. I was trying to figure out something. It says here that upon resolution, adopting the document will be uploaded into the pending Restored Act grant application for funding for support of construction of the Hollywood Road Extension Bridge over Bayou Black. Yes. And when I read this, it seems to be a little more interesting than what it seemed to be as a bridge. It says here, and this portion right here says, whereas the Terrebonne Parish was subject to a post-award civil rights complaints reviewed in June 20, 2021, wherein correct actions were recommended to require in several of the areas audited in compliance with review of the U.S. Treasury Office of Civil Rights and Diversity, and also later on down here is a section where it's now whereas be it resolved that this U.S. Treasury Office of the Civil Rights of Diversity and attached Title VI Civil Rights Compliance Plans is hereby accepted and approved for the immediate use by all departments and agencies of Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government. It further goes on, and this package it also says right here, and because, you know what I mean, sometimes we look at some of the contracts that are going here, and I know we're talking about and it's addressing the issue with a bridge, Hollywood Bridge, going over Bayou Black, but then in the package it actually is mentioning something in an agreement that Terrebonne Parish had come in compliance with and actually will be in compliance with and audit twice a year to make some efforts to actually communicate with the Louisiana Department of Treasury. It goes on and says that, excuse me, it says, Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government and the sub-recipients in receiving funds for the projects and programs under the Restoration Act, direct components and grant programs administered by the United States Treasury. So, you know, man, I'm looking at this and we're looking at really kind of throw off to what Mr. Babin is saying and other things that go on, and what I've seen since I've been up on the council is the fact that, you know, I mean, a lot of times we see these contracts, and I noticed that they have names with Terrebonne Parish, and constantly we have people that actually get these contracts, and I know it's difficult through the process that we have, but we're looking at, sometimes we get these contracts and I don't know where the people are coming from. And then what it is, that I have been asked by a number of people that's in my district or have an association that want to do business with Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government to actually how we do this and how we do that. It goes on further in this. It says Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government and the sub-recipients are committed to improve the accessibility of these programs. And we're looking at those programs, and we have to fully understand. It says notice of the rights of the public. This is not, most oftentimes when you look at the book, you don't know what's inside the cover. And when I look at this, and I don't want to offend nobody, but if you are offended about this, when the word civil rights is used, it's just because I am the one that's actually saying this thing says all people, the rights of all people. I've been contacted by a number of people about the process that we actually have and the set-asides, and then the objective here is to actually have particular business agreements or projects that we actually have, and then these guidelines with the Title VI are actually followed. And so the point being there, I know Mr. Black is here, and he's going to be in charge of that. And at the final one said Title VI of the Civil Rights Act provides for no person shall be subject to discrimination based on race, color, or national origin under any program, activity in which we receive federal funds. So we're looking at the fact that, we're receiving federal funds, and we actually coming to understanding that some people have actually asked me to address the issue. I found the issue here in doing the package, and then we already have an agreement, and let it be known to the public that Terrebonne Parish is in agreement with the Treasury Department through the Title VI, and that we do not discriminate. We have an agreement on paper that they do not discriminate against any race. They even have provisions that, special language can be used for people of Spanish and Vietnamese. So, the efforts and what I support the Constitution of the United States of America, when you say civil rights, it doesn't actually set aside one individual race, even though I might be African American, but I'm speaking for all the people and actually sticking up for the rights of all the people. So there are some contracts, disputes, there are some issues that we can actually come in and guidelines that we have in reference to these federal monies that are coming in, and going back to the possibility, like Mr. Babin says, where these monies are going to be spent, who's spending the money, who we're doing business with, and how well they are operating in Terrebonne Parish. So I appreciate the effort, and thank you for allowing me to make the comment.
So you are speaking in support of the resolution?
Well, yes, I am speaking in support of it.
So
yes.
I won't recall the vote. I will let the vote stand. Thank you. Item G, emergency order authorizing the relocation of Terrebonne Parish precinct polling locations due to an emergency arising from Hurricane Ida for the election on Saturday, March 26, 2022. Move Mr. Dirk Guidry, seconded by Ms. Domingue. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hold up. Before we finish that vote, Mr. Michel?
I just wanted to recognize the fact that our registrar of voters is here, and I want to thank you for being here.
Yes. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ordinance is approved. Item H, discussion. Item H has been pulled, but I'll read it. Discussion relative to the services and programs provided through TEDA, Terrebonne Economic Development Authority. No public wishing to address the council. We address those two, and moving on to public hearings. An ordinance to amend Section 21-30A to include the Larry J. Randolph Community Park and Section 21-31 of Chapter 21, Article 2 of Parish Code to rename Gray Recreation Park to Larry J. Randolph Community Park. Public once, public twice, third time public.
Motion to close.
Motion to close, Mrs. John Amity, second by Mr. Carl Harding. All in favor say aye. Well, we're discussing. Mr. Michel.
Okay, regarding the notice to the public, it's almost 8 o'clock, and public hearing is supposed to be at 6:30. Not deviating from the agenda at 6:30 or shortly thereafter is discouraging public from staying. I don't know if that's the case today, but there's not a member of the public that's here. Well, there's not a member of the public that's here without another agenda, and it goes. And it should be noted that we need to try to get this closer to 6:30 for those people who do want to come and address without having to spend their whole evening here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Michel. Any more discussion? All in favor in closing public hearing? Aye. Any opposed? Motion to adopt, Mr. Amity.
Second.
Seconded, Mr. Harding. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item B, an ordinance to amend Section 16-56B and Section 16-56D of Chapter 16, Article 3, Division I of the Parish Code, Mobile Retail Food Vendor Permits. Public once, public twice, third time public. We have a motion to close?
Motion closed.
Motion closed, Mr. Harding.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Amity. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion
Okay, well, before we get to that, Mr. Pulaski?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, administration had requested that this item be pulled from the agenda because once we submitted the item for consideration, We had further discussions with a number of the business owners downtown, and we decided we're going to make some revisions to this proposed ordinance. So we're going to take it back to the drawing board.
So no action is necessary?
No action is necessary.
So rescind the motion.
Well, we're going to be introducing a completely new ordinance, so it'll need another public hearing at that time. So
Thank you. Seeing no motion, moving on. Item D, an ordinance to amend the C, we're on C. An ordinance declaring a 2014 Dodge Charger unit number 368 from the city marshal having a value of $11,000 as surplus and authorizing said item to be disposed of by any legally approved method. Public once, public twice, third time public.
Motion closed.
Motion to close, Mr. Amity, seconded Mr. Trosclair. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion to adopt, Mr. Amity, seconded Mr. Trosclair. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Ordinance is adopted. Item D, an ordinance to amend the 2022 adopted operating budget, 5-year capital outlay budget, and budgeted positions of the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government for the following items and to provide for related matters. Number 1, West Side Alma Street Drainage Project, $1,359,783. Home ARP, $1,235,848. Sanitation, $509,000. Housing and Human Services, $55,786. Planning, a credit of $3,545. A, add a Code Enforcement Inspector Grade 107. B, delete Code Enforcement Officer 2, Grade 108. Public once. Public twice. Third time public. Motion to close, Mr. Michel. Seconded by Mr. Harding. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion to adopt, Mr. Michel, seconded Mr. Harding. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Ordinance is adopted. Item E, an ordinance declaring parish property located at 827 Greenwich Street, parcel number 42160, as surplus and not needed for public purposes. Public once. Public twice. Third time public.
Motion closed.
Motion closed, Mr. Amity, seconded by Mr. Trosclair. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion to adopt, Mr. Amity, seconded by Mr. Dirk Gidry. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Ordinance is adopted. Item F, an ordinance authorizing the, item F, I believe, well, let me read it. An ordinance authorizing the issuance of not exceeding $50 million taxable hurricane recovery bonds in one or more series of the parish of Terrebonne, state of Louisiana. Ms. Malden?
So I just want to remind you, we can go ahead and have the public hearing since it was introduced for the public hearing, but we will not take any action on this because of the new ordinance that was introduced Monday night.
All right, Mr. Michel.
So will we extend the public hearing, or will we still close the public hearing?
Go ahead, Ms. Malden.
You will close the public hearing on this particular ordinance because it's a brand new one coming to you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, public once, public twice, third time public.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close by Mr. Michel.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Amity. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Seeing no action on this, going on to committee reports. Item A, Budget and Finance Committee, Mr. Carl Harding.
Yeah, I make a motion that the council accept the minutes of the Budget and Finance Committee held on Monday, the 16th, the 6th, 7th.
Do we have any public hearings?
You should have had a sheet right on top with your, right here, sir.
Yes, and that's one public hearing, 2 public hearings. Introducing the ordinance to amend the 2022 adopted operating budget, the 5-year capital outlay budget in Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government for the following items and to provide for related matters. 1, Houma Fire Department grant $5,000. Montague Fire Department number 6 grant $5,000. Animal shelter donation $1,500. Sanitation $22,000. Animal shelter donation $20,000. General Fund Office of Emergency Preparedness 2021 Cities Readiness Initiative $23,839. Road Lighting District, number 4, $10,000. General Fund Office of Emergency Preparedness, $42,000, and call for a public hearing on said matter on February 23rd, 2022, at 6:30 p.m. Second one, introducing ordinance authorizing and providing the insurance of the sales and the delivery of $50 million taxable hurricane recovery revenue bond, Series 2022, and call for a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022, at 6:30 p.m.
We have a motion from Mr. Harding.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Trosclair. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item B, Public Service Committee, Mr. John Amity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Public Services Committee held on February 7th, 2022, and I have no public hearings.
Moved by Mr. Amity, seconded by Mr. Michel. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item C, Community Development and Planning Committee, Mr. Trosclair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I make a motion the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Community Development and Planning Committee held on February 7, 2022. Have no public hearings.
Moved by Mr. Trosclair, seconded by Mr. Michel. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Item D, Policy, Procedure, and Legal Committee, Ms. Domingue.
I'd like to make a motion that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Policy, Procedure, and Legal Committee held on February 7th, 2022, and I have 3 public hearings. Number 1, introduce an ordinance to authorize the parish president to execute a right of use agreement between the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government and Tiffany Lynn Bowen for the property that bears a municipal address of 300 Hidalgo Drive, Houma, Louisiana 70363, and call a public hearing on Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Item 2, introduce an ordinance to restructure Chapter 21, Article 5 of the Terrebonne Parish Code on Recreation Districts by enhancing Sections 21 to 49 to authorize the use of low-speed vehicles on Bayou Country Parkway and call a public hearing on Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Item 3, introduce an ordinance to authorize the parish president to execute an intergovernmental agreement on behalf of the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government between Tpcg and Terrebonne Economic Development Authority to continue to lease space to TITA in the government tower and to continue joint efforts to promote industrial and economic development in the parish of Terrebonne, Louisiana, and call a public hearing on Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022 at 6:30 p.m.
Moved by Ms. Domingue, seconded by Mr. Michel. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 4, notice of meetings. Motion to approve council staff to attend the Louisiana Association of Municipal Secretaries and Assistants 32nd Annual Spring Conference to be held in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on April 6th through the 8th, 2022. Moved by Mr. Dirk Guidry, seconded by Mr. Carl Harding. All in favor say, discussion. Go ahead, Mr. Michel.
Yeah, I just want to know which staff members are going.
Miss Tammy?
I will probably be attending that conference.
Okie dokie. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Tammy. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to appointments to various boards, committees, and commissions. A, Veterans Memorial District, 2 unexpired terms due to resignation, 1 representing the parish president south of the Intracoastal and 1 representing the American Legion Post 380, and 1 expired term representing the Vietnam Veterans of America, Mr. Murdoch J. Gilmore, representing the American Legion Post 380, submits an application and resume for consideration.
Motion to appoint Mr. Gilmore, hold up on.
Chair recognizes Mr. Trosclair.
Make a motion that we appoint Mr. Gilmore and hold the other over.
Motion by Mr. Trosclair. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded, Mr. Harding. I guess we have a discussion about this. Mr. Michel.
Well, I just wanted to put my light on to second it, and I don't know what happened.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item B, American Airport Commission. One vacancy due to resignation. Mr. Frank Jeffrey Tutone submits application for consideration. Mr. Dontrell D. Scobie submits application and resume for consideration. Mr. Babin.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to open, close, and vote.
We have a motion by Mr. Babin. Do we have a second?
I got my light on.
You don't need a light for a second, but I'll go ahead and recognize you, Mr. Guidry.
I second that.
Mr. Guidry seconds it. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Oh, well, we have to vote.
Yes.
Go ahead,
Mr. Darren Guidry,
Mr. Tutone.
Mr. Babin,
Mr. Tutone.
Mr. Dirk Guidry,
Mr. Tutone?
Mr. Trosclair, Tutone, Mr. Navy, Mr. Harding,
Scobie.
Mr. Michel,
Mr. Tutone?
Mr. Amade,
Tutone?
Ms. Domain.
Mr. Tutone.
Mr. Chairman, you have 7 votes for Mr. Tutone, 1 vote for Mr. Scobie.
And Mr. Tutone is in the audience. Would you like to say any words, Mr. Tutone?
Jeff Tutone, 426 Destiny Place. I'd like to thank the council for the vote of confidence. I appreciate it. I think there's a lot to be done out there at the airport, and over the many years I've been there, we've gotten a lot done. There's a lot going on. So I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank you for the education tonight on street lighting. I am now a professional street lighter, and anything else that I could do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tutone. Mr. Dirk Guidry.
Mr. Tutone, I know you've been on our board commission for a long time, and thank you a lot for being there. Can you give us any kind of updates on the new part of the base that they're going to do for the autonomous aircraft? We haven't heard anything in a while about that.
Well, it's right next to our office out there, and it's under construction now between COVID and of course, the storm. And when I get back on there, I'm going to get up to date on that. And if y'all would like, I can bring you, a report on what's going on out there with more detail.
If you would, please, I would. Sure. The airport's in my district, and I'm very, very interested in this because I know it'll bring high-dollar paying jobs to the area. So whatever we can do. That's a real sleeping giant. That part of it. It is.
Years ago, we put aside some other property on the air base for the unmanned aircraft. And then we ran into a problem. We were working with Nichols State at the time. And we ran into a problem with the FAA in that an airport couldn't donate money to unmanned aircraft. Why, I don't know. But that was a long time ago. But now all that's changed, so we're moving forward with it.
But thank you for your service on the Airport Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
And I echo Mr. Guidry's comments. Thank you, Mr. Tutone. Item C, Library Board of Control, 1 vacancy due to a resignation. Ms. Devonna A. Simmons submits application and resume for consideration. Mr. Babin.
Motion to open, close, and appoint.
Second.
Motion to open and close and appoint is seconded by Mr. Harding. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I know Ms. Simmons is in the audience. Would you like to say something, Ms. Simmons?
No, sir, I
wouldn't. Okay. She would not like to say anything, but I know Ms. Simmons will be a great asset to the library board, which I am also a member of. Thanks. Item D, Coastal Zone Management and Restoration. 1 expired term representing the public. Mr. Brian K. Pledger submits application and resume for consideration.
Motion to open, close, and
Mr. Trosclair.
Make a motion, open, close, and appoint.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Trosclair, seconded by Mr. Harding. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item C, vacancies to various boards, committees, and commissions coming up. We have the Veterans Memorial District, 1 unexpired term due to a resignation representing the parish president south of the Intercoastal, and 1 expired term representing the Vietnam Veterans of America, which is still open. And then we have the Recreation District 3A, 1 expired term and 1 unexpired term due to resignation. Recreation District 6, 1 expired term. Recreation District 7, 1 expired term. Bayou Blue Fire Protection District, 1 expired term. Bayou Cane Fire Fire District, 1 expired term, Codo Fire Protection District Board, 1 expired term and 1 unexpired term due to resignation. Fire District 8, 1 expired term, Terrebonne Parish Tree Board, 1 vacancy due to resignation. Houma Board of Zoning Adjustments, 1 vacancy due to a resignation. The vacant position is for an alternate member. Announcements. Do any of the council members have announcements? Ms. Domingue.
Yeah, I'd just like to tell everybody to come out to downtown Houma this weekend. The Rotary Club of Houma is doing a cast iron cook-off from 12 to 4 at the downtown courthouse square. I will have a team at that cook-off, so hopefully I'll see you guys out there. But, come out. It should be beautiful weather, and looking forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Domingue. Mr. Babin.
Yes, I have an announcement to make about the committee I was trying to form, and that was going to include people from the Chamber of Commerce, TITA, faith-based groups, mental health professionals, NAACP, and SCIA. So I want, and the general public. So I want people out there to know where I was coming from with this, and this will be on the agenda again.
Thank you, Mr. Babin. Mr. Dirk Guidry.
Yeah, I'd like to apologize for if I was unprofessional, but I would like to correct Mr. Darren Guidry on what I had. The item that Steve brought up was decorative lighting, and we discussed that. And then Mr. Guidry let Miss Mary Kay and Mr. Al talk on a speaker card. So I was not speaking out of turn. Just to let you know, Mr. Guidry, I was not speaking out of turn. You opened it up on the speaker card, and on that speaker card, it didn't have nothing to say about lights.
With that, any other announcements? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn by Ms. Domingue, seconded. Oh, you have an announcement, Mr. Harding?
No.
Motion seconded by Mr. Harding. Engineering reports.
As per.
Milford and Associates, T. Baker Smith, as per by Ms. Domingue. Second by Mr. Harding. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Now we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Motion adjourned, Mr. Harding. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Domingue. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Have a good night.